Bing bong.
This is the iDanSimpson Show.
We do it because it's right.
I love the dialectic.
His testicles became swollen.
Based.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
Please clap.
Who's this man? This man in the hat. I'm gonna ruin this.
You're a stupid baby down, not me.
All right. Welcome into the show. Hello, replay viewers. Folks, while we have you here, make sure you're supporting the show on Patreon. You can join for $3 a month. You'll get early access to all of my chats, including my based friend that's joining me today, No Justice. Let's please introduce No Justice.
Please clap.
Yeah, that's right. We got the wrong links in the chat. I'll fix that later. But No Justice, welcome in. How you doing today? Thank you for joining me. What's up?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Finished work half an hour ago, so it's been a quick changeover because I use my streaming set. I work in a call center, so I use my streaming setup for work as well. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. Sorry, your little stressfulness there. A quick costume change as it is. Really happy to be joined by you, folks. If you did not see my previous chat with No Justice, make sure you check out my interview. It's on my YouTube channel. Great. Well, No Justice, we got a couple things that we would like to do today. Just a little catch up, see what you're up to, and also hopefully you can hold my hand a little bit through the French election. It's been something I've not really covered. I've not really spent any time on. I noticed we got the Macron, we got Le Pen, and we got that whole thing. Before we get into that, I mean, other than the French election, which I guess you've been spending time on your stream, what else do you get into? What's going on? What's new?
mostly a bunch of like British politics. So I think we talked about it last time, how there was this big scandal where the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who set the lockdown rules that were in effect, because that's what we had over in the UK. Like, we actually had a proper scheme where you weren't allowed to leave your house a lot of the time unless it was for essential reasons, and then everyone's bills were all paid, everyone's salaries were all paid at 67% or 80% to start with by the government, so they could stay at home and still consume and still function in society, right? But you couldn't leave your house. There was no congregation. You could meet outside with one other person, and that was it, right up. So basically for exercise. So there were incredibly strict lockdown measures that we had at the start of the pandemic. And it turns out that the actual Prime Minister who wrote the rules at plenty of points during the lockdown, at the time when we had lockdowns, was breaking them by having parties in number 10 Downing Street, right? So this became this whole furore, and it's basically taken the media by storm for months and months and months. It continues to go on. The opposition, the Labour Party, continue to go on about it, on and on and on about it. Now, this is like a fly in the ointment, all the bad shit that the Tories have done over the past 2 years since they won the general election. But people just, unfortunately, the British public don't care about all of the other heinous shit, because, my God, there's been just like an absolute cavalcade of garbage policies that this country's done. Like, recently, there was a big scandal over the fact that what they're going to be doing is taking legitimate asylum seekers and then flying them to Rwanda instead of taking them in at the UK.
Whoa.
I know, right? It's crazy. It's some crazy shit. This government is beyond the fucking pale. But no one cares about the Rwanda shit. Everyone cares about the party. And I'm like, well, I obviously think that the party, like Partygate as it's known now, I think it's bad, right? I obviously think that prime ministers who break their own rules regarding lockdown, that's some trash shit. But in the grand scheme of things, incredibly racist policies where we deport people to Rwanda for claiming asylum legally as per the UN Constitution, I think that's or the UN like asylum agreement, that's really, really bad. The other thing as well is that at the same time, we're also having a scheme where the government will pay you to house Ukrainian refugees, and there's no other policy, right? Like, I'm absolutely happy to take in Ukrainian refugees, but it's incredibly strange how, if you come from the Middle East, if you come from Yemen, if you come from all of these other places, these war-torn places, you get shipped off to some country in Africa, right? But if you're a white immigrant from Ukraine, suddenly it's absolutely fine, right? Like, why this meaningless distinction, right?
Has anyone been cornered and had to explain the difference? That is wild stuff.
It's only like leftoids that are talking about this. Obviously, like all the liberals are talking about how the Rwanda plan is bad because obviously it is, and liberals can like at least superficially see how racist it is. But the comparison with what's happening with Ukraine and how specifically racist it is seems to only really be being talked about by like actual like left wing people. Which I mean. I shouldn't really be surprised really at the end of the day. So liberals gonna liberal.
Lib's gonna lib. Am I right? We spoke, I think the last time we talked was right about when the Russian tanks were rolling in. Is that about right? And I think you helped hold my hand through that as well. And I don't know, maybe we could talk about that. It's sort of been fascinating to see a lot of people fall on, I don't know, I guess the other side. Not to say like I support Russia, war crimes are war crimes. But like, you know what I mean? It seems like a lot of people have fallen on the side of sort of pro-NATO almost. I'm not sure if we froze you, if you're frozen out here. You do appear to be. Okay, we got you back.
My camera's coming up okay on Skype. Okay. I don't know what's happened on your end.
We froze out there for a second. It's not a big deal. If you're with me, we're okay. Let me just Skype. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Skype and Droid camera picking me up okay, so I'm getting you clear through my end as well.
Cool. Well, yeah, and again, the last time we spoke, again, the Russian tanks were rolling in. A lot of people, I think, have fallen out on maybe a different side of things. And the moment you froze, you were sort of looking like you were judging me. And so, I guess not to say like I'm in support of Russian tanks rolling into town. I'm not in support of any war crimes. I'm in support of civilians on the ground, of course, and that's why we want the war to end as soon as possible. But of course, over the past 2 months, I don't know, it's just there's been a fracture that's been revealed where, people have, I don't know, seemingly fallen on the opposite side of the fracture, and they seem to think that I should want to arm Nazis more, or neo-Nazis or whatever you want to call them. And it's just sort of been wild the past 2 months. Do you have any reflections on that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting how we're going to be talking about the French election soon, where NATO was a big kind of sticking point between a lot of the major parties involved in the election. But I digress. Like, it's frustrating because I agree with the idea that there should be some kind of negotiated settlement, right? And if we're going to be, I'm kind of ambivalent on the idea that we should be arming Ukrainian military in general, but there should be a way in which we can arm just the non-Nazi elements of the military, right? Surely the fact that in the popular media something like the Azov Battalion is being kind of completely ignored. Like, did you see the video of I think it was liberals in America literally chanting Azov, and then they were being interviewed by somebody saying, "Do you think the Azov Battalion are Nazis?" And they were like, "No, we just think they're nationalists." I'm like, well, sounds a bit like Nazis to me. But then obviously we both understand the neo-Nazi backgrounds that they do have. I mean, you saw the video of them covering their bullets with a lard with which to kill Chechen militias, and I'm just like, this looks like Nazism to me. But it just seems like an incredibly simple idea for me that if the war is going to continue, if Ukrainian military that is not Nazi adjacent or Nazis, but they actually are in the case of the Azov Battalion, surely we can just be arming these people if that's incredibly necessary, right? Because obviously I'm anti-NATO. But Russia, the negotiations that have happened Russians haven't been happy with ceding any ground with which to wake these peace negotiations. So I'm not sure, because at what point do you just accept that a country with the heightened military and nuclear capabilities of Russia can just go to you and say, we're going to invade you, right? Unless you cede to our demands, and then you people say, well, okay, I guess we're going to have to cede, otherwise loads of people are going to die, right? So it's a really complex situation, and I don't claim to be any kind of geopolitics expert on any kind of actual solution, but if I have one principle that I want to stick to, it's let's not give the Nazis additional weapons. I just hope that maybe what happens is there's this standoff between the Chechens and the Azov Battalion, and they just get rid of each other, and then we're all good, right?
I mean, they're all holed up in that Azovstal steel factory, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
And then we have Western media like CBS and Al Jazeera, which is, I guess, you can. I think they're serving Western narratives, and they're just like putting these guys up, and there's like women and children in this steel factory right now, and they're like, oh. They're painting them sort of as victims, and they very may well be, but at the same time, they're with these Nazis. So, are these Nazis using them as human shields? Are they at worst, hostages? I don't fucking know. But Western media doesn't ask any of these questions. They just sort of like uncritically, literally share what like dudes wearing Nazi symbols on their sleeves, like what they're saying and what they want NATO to do and what they want other countries to do. They're asking for more arms and more help. I don't think we should listen to Nazis personally. Okay, but and of course I think it's important.
That's one thing we can definitely agree on. Yeah.
And I think it's important to not paint everyone in Ukraine as Nazis, and that's definitely not what we're doing here. I mean, but of course you got to say,
if there's anything that we can confirm from electoral results, from overall popular support, is that and any time like outside of what's happening with this military conflict, right, that there's very little support for like actual right-wing beliefs, like especially at the last election and the previous election before that. The right-wing support is completely tanked. There's the far-right support just wasn't really there. It was really just kind of a battle between three centrists at that point within the election. So like actual popular support for Nazism in Ukraine is very, very low. Obviously, I know like people like Bandera are controversial figures, but you got to think that most countries, when you have these kind of mythological figures within popular discourse, they don't get kind of critically examined. Like you look at somebody like, I don't know, Winston Churchill in the UK, who is somebody who is responsible for millions of deaths in Bengal, yet is lauded as some kind of hero within the UK for what he's done as part of the war effort, right? He gets lionized, and we forget to properly critically analyze him. And I can only assume that that's what's happened with people like Bandera in Ukraine as well. Again, I don't claim to be any kind of expert, but
I mean, I'll go ahead and reflect on U.S. history. Just how many modern presidents are not war criminals? They like literally all are.
How many of the founding fathers were slave owners?
Literally slave owners. They wrote the Constitution, and we're like clamoring over that, like, oh, what a document. It's alive. That's why it's good. Anyways, yeah, like there does seem to be a lack of that kind of reflection, though, and of course, all of a sudden, people, a lot of people think that we're just doing good things in Ukraine. Like, we don't do good things here. Why do you think we're doing good things there? All right, but I don't know, anything else you want to say about that?
No, I think that's fine. I'm happy to move on.
Beautiful. So, No Justice. Definitely one of the reasons we reached out to you today. I just want to have you hold my hand through some things. So, France, it's a country. They've got good food.
Yes.
They've got very good food.
I mean, like as far as like European kind of food rankings would go,
yeah,
I don't think I'd have them particularly high. Like there's some good French food, but I wouldn't have it above like Greece or Italy.
Let's go.
Or places like that. I think I prefer German food to French food as well. I quite like German food. It's very very filling.
I guess France just gets a lot of credit just because like the fine dining is like, fuck it, man. I want street food, Fuck France. Anyways, is that what we're getting at?
Street food is good. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So France had an election. It was Macron. Emmanuel Macron. He's like a centrist kind of guy. How do we even describe him? I don't even know.
Right. So,
lib type.
To properly contextualize this election,
yeah, here we go.
There's a lot of backstory, right? Because, a decade ago, because there's been basically a historic realignment in French politics in recent times. So previously, it was kind of a two-horse race, and the way that French politics worked between what I'm going to do is I'm going to name all of these parties by what their translated name is in English, right? Because I can't do a French accent. If I try and do it, I'll look like an idiot. So there's always kind of a previous two-horse race between what is now known as the Republican Party and what was previously known as the Socialist Party, right? Yeah. They're not actually a socialist party; they're a social democratic party who had they kind of previously were in power. Like Mitterrand is a very famous socialist party leader who essentially like a mostly social democratic agenda anyway. So it's a bit of a confusing name for a lot of people, right? People will see Socialist Party and that will trigger a lot of bells when it really doesn't actually represent their policy platform at all, right? So Mitterrand was the most famous kind of Socialist Party president for a very, very long time. And so 2017 was when Emmanuel Macron first got elected, who was previously within the Socialist Party, and when Francois Hollande, who was the Socialist Party president previously before the realignment, he was part of the cabinet as well. Then, but he was appointed by Francois Hollande. But then Macron left the Socialist Party, and he formed his own party, which is called Republic on the March, which is essentially just a centrist party at this point, right? Okay. And in 2017, when he first got elected, actually a very similar thing happened that will happen now. In that, so I don't know how much you know about the French electoral system for the president, but it is essentially a runoff election where you have all of the candidates in a free-for-all for the first round, and then the top two candidates then move on to the second round.
Okay.
Okay. And for the first time in a very, very long time, in 2017, neither the Republican Party nor the Socialist Party made it to the second round, where it was a battle between Emmanuel Macron's Republic on the March, which is a centrist party that kind of pulls policies from both sides of the political spectrum. Like, I'm very happy to actually call it a true centrist party at this point, really. And against the National Rally, which is Marine Le Pen's party, who... So they have an incredibly complex history as well.
Yeah.
So they were previously the National Front, which was headed by Jean-Marie Le Pen, which is Marine Le Pen's father, who were incredibly far right and very obviously so. They were, incredibly racist, incredibly homophobic, all that kind of stuff. But Marine Le Pen, when she took over and changed it to the National Rally, what she was trying to do with that was try and soften the party's image. So she reversed a lot of their positions on things like same-sex civil partnerships and things like that. It became more of a multiculturalism has failed kind of dog whistle platform rather than something that's explicitly like racist in the way that it is. But we all know what all of those dog whistles are for, which is just anti-Islam, which has become a big part of French politics in general, is this kind of anti-Islamic slant. Obviously, there was the Charlie Hebdo attacks that really kind of fueled anti-Islamic resentment within the French populace, and so much so in that Macron started to try and court the far right vote by invoking some of this kind of anti-Islamic rhetoric that has been espoused by the National Rally over time, right? So when you look at the actual economic policies, I would say that I think that Le Pen's economic platform is slightly better than Macron's. So like in Macron's premiership from the 2017 to 2022, he did things like change labor laws. He was there was some level of moving towards market solutions rather than nationalist public solutions. So whereas Le Pen is a protectionist, Macron is very, very pro EU. Le Pen was initially on the platform of leaving the EU, but again, that's something that's softened recently as well. Trying to remove from the Schengen area, so it makes it harder for people to be able to move and immigrate to France, as well as stopping all outside immigration from outside the EU as well. It's one of our party platforms too. So those are the main kind of two candidates who are in the runoff. Now, to even add even more backstory to this, the other most kind of popular candidate within this election was someone called Jean-Luc Mélenchon, whose party is called France in Revolt. Now, this is a leftist party. Like, they get described as far left by a lot of the media, but really their positions are just kind of democratic socialists, and then like the left wing of the social democratic kind of platform. So again, he's a Eurosceptic. He's anti-NATO. He's, pro. He was focusing on a very kind of green policy platform, because that's another big kind of, big talking point within the kind of French politics, is making sure to move to some kind of green policy platform, economic policy platform moving forward. And both Le Pen and Macron have made kind of assertions towards green policy, insofar as Macron is very much in favor, and Le Pen is in favor of everything apart from like wind power, which I digress. That's a bit of a tangent, but regardless. Jean-Luc Mélenchon ran in 2017 as leader of the Left Front, which was a coalition of a bunch of different left parties, and came in fourth actually behind Francois Fillon. But in 2022, in this election, he came third, was 1% behind Le Pen, but as leader of his party rather than as a leader of the Left Front, which meant that there was a vote split that essentially cost him moving into the second round. So the Communist Party also fielded a candidate, which split the vote. So they got 2% of the vote. So if Roussel, who was the Communist Party candidate, hadn't run, and they'd all voted for France in Revolt, there would be no fascist candidate in the final runoff, right? And it would have been, proper socialist versus a centrist, and there could have been some actual proper change moving forward and real proper economic reform. Because Macron's policy platform was wild. Like, he was campaigning on raising the pension age, something that has been fought for a very long time by people in France. You know what French people are like. If things go wrong, they start rioting, like they did when Macron tried to up fuel duty. Like, do you remember, like, the yellow vest protests, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So he ran a very bad campaign.
Neoliberalism. Just austerity, right?
Yeah, it's very, very. Yeah, like austerity light, because even though he's a neoliberal, some of the policies of some kind of governmental interventionist policies he was happy with. So, for example, in the UK, we've seen a 50% increase in all of our energy bills recently, because our bills are capped by a governmental body called Ofgem that raised the energy cap by 50%. So all of our bills are going up, but EDF is majority owned by the French government. So Macron was like, okay, fuel prices are going up because of what's being fueled by overall like OPEC's kind of fucking around with the market, and also the decrease in the availability of oil in Europe, which is mostly Russian oil.
Yeah,
because it's places like Gazprom and Rosneft and all of these other Russian oil companies. That's been obviously been curtailed recently, obviously because of the war. But Macron was capped their prices at a 4% rise, which was interest, essentially, like the rate of interest at the time. So there's a lot of so he's very happy to use governmental power if he feels like it'll win him votes. So it's a mixed bag with Macron, and Le Pen has, I would say, a better economic platform, but she's just she's just fascist. I'm sorry, you can't really vote for her. So when Mélenchon didn't make it through to the second round, he made it very, very clear that he didn't want any of his supporters to vote for Le Pen. He literally said no one should vote for Le Pen, but refused to endorse Macron because they don't share any kind of ideal apart from a bit of green energy and like good social issues. Like, obviously there's so much history with homophobia and racism within the National Front, which doesn't really exist in the left bloc. And there's like a bit of, and there's the way in which Macron has tried to court the Islamophobic vote within France as well, and shifted his social policies to the right, whilst still being at least a pro-secularism and being pro-LGBT rights and things like that. So it's a really interesting election to think about, because the Socialist Party, that was previously the biggest party in France, and the Republican Party, that was also previously the biggest party in France, got 5% and 2% of the vote respectively. They got nothing. They got absolutely destroyed by three, essentially, like one old party in the National Front and two new party in LFI and in Republic on the March, right? So there's this huge realignment where previously the main parties for decades and decades and decades just the vote collapsed. Like Anne Hidalgo, who's the Socialist Party candidate, she's currently mayor of Paris. She still couldn't get any votes. So it's and again, very interesting election to talk about because of how the platforms work, the way in which it's so different to how we would think of politics as being with regards to the alignment of social and economic policies. Like what we are used to in the UK and the US is very, very different in France, which gave me a little bit of a shock to think about. So it was odd how the result went. So, for example, Macron is so bad at gaining popular support amongst people who want actual change. When it came down to the second round, 41% of previous Mélenchon voters abstained, because you can vote blanc or do a white vote or blank vote in the second round if you want to, and people were so disillusioned they explicitly went up to vote for no candidate, right? So it shows the level of kind of political disillusionment in France at the moment, and a fascist gets second most votes out of any of the candidates, and all of the other people who would otherwise have voted, who voted people in the first round, just hated the actual candidate so much they just refused to vote and registered their displeasure by refusing to pick a candidate. Do you see what I mean?
I think so, yeah. Pretty based of them, you know. I feel sort of similarly about voting here. They don't give us options, and and that's how we get the ratchet effect over and over and over again. That's why things don't seem to ever move left. They don't ever give us an option. They shut it down every single time. And that's sad to hear. I guess this time it was due to leftist infighting. If that's too reductionist, let me know.
I mean, it was less. I mean, I think infighting wasn't too much. I just think there was enough disagreement within the left bloc that the Communist Party decided to run their own candidate, right? But it is what it is now. The election's over. It could have. I mean, do I think that Mélenchon would have won the second round if he'd made it through over Le Pen? I don't think so. But even so, you've got to think what might have been if there was some overall concerted effort to have a popular left candidate, because there was also a Green Party candidate who was running on obviously a green social democratic policy platform, which was always covered by Mélenchon's actual platform and manifesto that he was putting forward, and he got 5% of the vote. So if you really care about green policies, if that's your single issue vote, why are you voting for somebody who throughout the polling had no chance of winning at all, when you could have voted for Mélenchon, got what you wanted, and not only got at least some of your party platform through into the second round, but also stopped a fascist from being in the second round as well, right? It's frustrating the way in which it's just loads of candidates and then a runoff rather than some kind of ranked choice voting, or like a STV system, I guess. But hey ho.
Well, that's sort of like, when you sort of look at it, it seems like a system that can be gamed, very much like I think what's happening here and many other places. When you're just given two options at the end of the day, they can sort of game it. I don't know how they do it. They probably reverse engineer the thing, and you learn from experience. But like those in power are able to game these things in ways that are sort of beyond our understanding, and it makes me wonder how much of that is intentional. And of course, you think about how they can they could be whipping up disagreement among the ranks on the left, and they could have been somehow involved. This is me with my tinfoil hat, somehow involved with encouraging the Communist Party to run because they knew it would split the left vote. Right? This is me spinning tinfoil hat, but of course, people in power, and they know how to do these games by now. I'm just figuring it out, I guess. I don't know. Am I being silly?
I mean, yeah. True. I mean, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, what I found an interesting facet of the election is that obviously France has plenty of overseas colonies, places like Martinique, places like Guadeloupe, places like French Guiana, places like Saint Martin, and places like that. There are so many Réunion. There's so many overseas French territories, and in almost every single French overseas territory, Mélenchon was the top candidate in the first round, almost across the board. I think it was only Ile-de-France was the only overseas territory that didn't plurality vote for Mélenchon in the first round, because he has an internationalist platform, as a good socialist would do, right? And then in the second round, you think of a lot of these places, Guadeloupe, Martinique, French Guiana, these are all places with majority, 95% black population. And in the second round, they majority voted for Le Pen, the fascist, which is a really interesting kind of dynamic, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why, mainly these people, there's a big pro-independence movement in a lot of these kind of these colonies. That's what they are. They're colonies, right? They're ex-colonies, which are still tied to the French state. And you'd think that if you put a fascist in charge, you would then grow the support for further desires for independence by it's a kind of an accelerationist position. Whereas a lot of people who are pro-France would vote Macron because he believes in an overall, French overseas bloc, I guess. In that, plenty of people who live in places like Guadeloupe, they believe in, maintaining that French culture, but with their own, French African heritage or whatever. But it's a complex topic. There's a really good TikTok TikTok by a creator called Joris Explains. That's JORIS_explains on TikTok. If everyone wants to go and check out his video on what the kind of political opinions towards the election were in Guadeloupe, where he's originally from, he now lives in London. Or I think he was born in London, but his parents are from Guadeloupe. I forget. Either way, he had a really good explanation on how the French colonies approached this election. But it's very, very clear that someone with an internationalist perspective was really good at being able to put across his position to people in the ex-colonies.
Can we watch it? Is it this one that says, why did Guadeloupe vote for Le Pen?
Yes, that's the one.
Is it okay?
How did my black Caribbean island vote overwhelmingly for a fascist, white supremacist candidate in the second round of the French elections? I know, it's super confusing. Thank God I was there, so I kind of saw it coming, and that cushioned the shock when the results came out. So the first thing to note is that the leftist candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, came out first in the first round with 56% of the vote. So no, Guadeloupe hasn't suddenly shifted to the far right in only 2 weeks. A big part of the run of votes for Le Pen weren't in support of Marine Le Pen, but in protest against Emmanuel Macron, the incumbent. And this is exactly what shows the total failure of the policy of ostracizing the National Front from the political debate in France under the pretext that they were undemocratic. Their points were never addressed, never debunked, which allowed them to really reap the benefits of the protest votes. Yes, many Guadeloupeans who voted for Le Pen are fully aware that Le Pen may be oppressive, but their thinking was that they'd rather a potential oppression than the actual currently oppressive government that they've had for 5 years. Macron embodied everything that's wrong with the colonial relationship between France and its overseas territories. People viscerally hate Macron and the way he's handled crises like the COVID crisis. The rejection of the values that he represents and his style of governing, especially in the historical and cultural context of Guadeloupe, cannot be overstated. But it would be dishonest or naive of me to pretend like no one in Guadeloupe was genuinely pro-Le Pen. Some people are. And that's where it's important to understand the dilemma of the Guadeloupean identity. See, Guadeloupe is a nation, but not an independent country. So some Guadeloupeans are pro-independence. They don't believe in the promises of the French Republic. So they do anything to destabilize it. And their calculation was that electing Le Pen as president was the quickest way to get there. However, some people do believe in the liberty, equality, and fraternity that the French Republic promises. They want to be recognized as equals within French society, and their biggest qualms against France isn't that they're not independent, but rather that they're being treated as second-class citizens. So from their point of view, they don't want less of France, they want more of it. And some of those people saw in a Le Pen vote a chance for a greater integration of Guadeloupe into France. And Le Pen knew that. That's why she was constantly referring to the overseas...
I clicked out of it. Well, darn. Okay, that was great, though.
That was most of it, anyway.
That was incredible.
Yeah, they got you there, yeah.
Seems a little similar in some ways, perhaps, to the conversation right now that we're having in the United States about Puerto Rico and other colonized places. You know, perhaps there are people there that are like, oh, we want to be part of the no taxation without representation. Let us be a state, I don't think they talk like that in Puerto Rico. But of course, there are more revolutionary types. And in fact, I've got an invite out to someone that I think is going to spell this out for me about Puerto Rican independence movements, not being a state, not being one of the worst states, not being part of one of the worst countries in the history of the world, right?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, as far as Puerto Rico is concerned, literally anything is better than what they have now. When they are part of the United States, they're subject to all the kind of colonial regimes of the United States, whilst also having literally zero democratic voice in what goes on. And what happens to their island nation, right? It's despicable the way that they're treated at the moment. And whether they go down the route of becoming a statement, they'll get at least some representation and be able to at least put forward their political prescriptions towards what's happening in the country that controls them, then that's better than what they have now. But if they got independence, they would be able to create their own legislature and be able to make their own rules regardless of what else would otherwise get imposed on them. So, literally anything would be an improvement on what they have now. And arguably, independence would be easier if they were made a state first, right? Because then, at least then they can be able to usurp at least some of the kind of legislative norms that belong to the United States, and then manipulate and use them to be able to push further for legislation that would allow them to gain independence, right? So it's a sticky situation, but
I'm gonna have to look into that and try to figure that one out myself. And as I explore that on my channel, please.
Yeah, from a macro position as well, is that if you know, say for example, it probably wouldn't happen. I mean, you need a 67 vote majority in the Senate or whatever.
Yeah.
That if places like Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia and Guam and American Samoa and all these places, if these places became states, this would be good for, you know, people on the left, right? Once you get some kind of level to which the Democrats have a stranglehold, because all these places will most likely vote Democrat over Republican, once the Democrats have a stranglehold on the legislature and especially with regards to the Senate, it gives you much more leeway with which to agitate from a third party platform, because you don't have to argue with people over enabling the Republicans, because there's too much institutional power that the Democrats have over the Republicans at that point, that you can then push for third party reform at that point without having to fight against the endless tide of liberals going, oh, you have to stop Trump, you have to stop DeSantis, you have to stop XYZ, right? So
I'll just say I live in Chicago, and I'm only saying this because I feel like perhaps this example might not might help us deepen our understanding. It sounds like you're saying, like, if you got a bunch of Democrats around, you don't have to worry about the Republicans, and then that opens up space on the left. But I don't think that works in practice. Like here, like, we got Democrats that run Chicago, and it's like not great, dude. The cops are terrible. Not like they're ruining the school system. I think I understand your point. So let me know if I'm misquoting you, or, you know, if I'm reducing it. I don't mean to misunderstand you. I really don't. But I just wish that would be the case, but I just don't see that happening. And Chicago is actually a great example against that. It's like not great. It feels like it's run by Republicans. But okay, I'm just going to think about that. I'm going to let that stew. And please.
Just one quickly. Yeah, I think that the issue is what you have to do is you have to show liberals that liberalism fails, right? That's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, we're seeing the failure of the Biden administration, failing to address the needs of workers, like no changes in marijuana policy, no changes in student debt, like barely even paying lip service to the union movement, right? Whilst maintaining his position of keeping the federal government out of union protections, no repeal of Taft-Hartley. We see all of this stuff. We understand that we've seen, and the support for Biden is absolutely tanked, and they're going to get absolutely fucking eviscerated in the midterms, right? But this is the perfect position where did you see the poll that showed that 58% of Americans would consider voting third party if it was Biden versus Trump again in 2024?
Really? No, I guess.
Yeah, like, this is literally the perfect time, because you can't, if the Republicans stay in power for too long, whether it be on a local level or whether it be on a national level, every single thing can just be blamed on Republicans bad. We don't people, especially liberals, don't analyze the issues that are happening with the neoliberal establishment, because it can all be driven down to some kind of nebulous idea about Republicans being bad, which obviously they are. Yeah. But if you have the Democrats in charge, you can use that to say, look, this is what liberalism gets you. Sure, we may have LGBT rights, which is great. I'm glad that you're taking a position on that. Yeah. But, there's no fundamental changes that are happening that are materially benefiting your life as a member of the working class. And that has to be really put across to people. So, for example, like, you look at how much better Bernie did against Clinton after 8 years of Obama than he did against Biden after 4 years of Trump, because there were so many members of the Democratic Party who were just like, I have to vote. I have to put Biden as my primary choice, because we have to defeat Trump. That's the only thing that mattered in their brain at that point. Whereas after 8 years of neoliberal hegemony under Obama, and all the broken promises, all of the posturing with no fundamental change, no material change, people were like, we have to have something different. And it's only the superdelegates that got in the way of that.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned, like, LGBTQ rights, because again, like, our Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she's a lesbian mayor, and she sicks the cops on protesters, dude. I think she's talking about putting the Columbus statue back up. As in, they took it down after huge protests, and they're thinking about bringing it back up. Okay. Well, No Justice. I think we got ourselves a nice little clip there. We've tied some things together. I've learned a bit about France, and I was able to make it about me. I love making content about me, international stuff. It's always about me. No, we were able to tie it to Chicago, and I think it helped me understand, and tied a couple things to Puerto Rico. I'm going to keep those things in mind when I talk to my guests. Anything else that we think my audience should know about what's happening? What happened in France, what we should be looking forward to? Anything else on your mind?
I mean, the problem is that Macron is such a non-entity, and he's so much of a centrist. I don't think we'll see anything interesting moving forward. It'll just be business as usual. And unfortunately, what will happen is, as the national rallies, obviously, their vote percentage grew massively from 2017 to now. So all we'll see is all of the same problems of neoliberalism not get solved, and the Liberals will continue to realise that their platform will lead to barbarism eventually, unless they adopt some kind of, adopt some kind of like left wing positions, and then they'll continue to fail, and we may see the resurgence of the far right properly at the next French election. But we shall see. And it's interesting. Have you heard of the term called pacification before?
Say that again. Pacification. What?
Pacification.
Pacification.
Alpha Sierra Oscar Kilo-ification.
I got it. We did it. Pacification. The decline of the... Yes, please.
You get, obviously, decline of the centre-left social democratic political parties, such as the Socialist Party, and obviously, you saw how the Labour Party in the UK declined under people like Gordon Brown and Ella Miliband, trying to be some kind of centre-left platform, and that's why we saw the rise of people, like Jean-Luc Mélenchon, like Jeremy Corbyn, people offering radical change to the failures of liberal democracy at the end of the day. So that's what's happened in France. It's what's happened in the UK. It seems like only the kind of Nordic countries in Europe and Germany maybe as like the exceptions to the decline of social democracy in Europe, mostly because the neoliberals have never had enough of a platform within those countries to be able to dismantle the state as much as people like Sarkozy and Thatcher did. So,
okay, so you maybe we're saying that. After a couple more years of Macron, there's people are going to see neoliberalism's failing. It's leading to barbarism. It's socialism or barbarism, right, chat? And then hopefully that opens up a little space on the left. Is that sort of the gist?
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a further realignment, and I think especially in like South and Western Europe, there will be a continued. It's the same failure of neoliberalism that happened in Greece that led to the election of Syriza. Like, we shall see. I mean, you never. Obviously, people like Macron, people like Starmer, these people all have the backing of venture capital. These have the banking. They have the backing of financial institutions that desire to continue the the neoliberalization of the economy. So they have the media and the press and money on their side. So they may win out, but we all understand what fascism is. It's capitalism in decay, and that's exactly what we're seeing, especially post-COVID. And don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, it leads to a position where the left can gain power in a lot of these countries, but it's going to take a bit more realignment. It's a lot more realignment in the UK and a little bit more realignment in France, but we shall see.
No, Justice, you've been a fantastic guest. I'm going to drop your information there. And I'm sorry about there's a sound effect coming on my end. Don't worry about it. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for joining me today and talking about France and just geopolitics in general, and helping me to wrap my head around some things in my chat as well. Really appreciate this. If there was a specific part of this that you loved, let me know, and I'll be sure to clip that out when we feature this chat. But folks can find you on Twitter.com and Twitch.tv at no. Oh, I typed it out wrong. It says not justice. Oh no.
It's all right. It's no worries.
Oh no.
But Twitter,
I'm worried.
So
yeah.
Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. It's all the same handle, which you can see there.
There you go. Yeah.
That handle right there.
Yeah. Awesome.
There we go.
And when can they find you streaming, and how else can people support you?
Usually just around about this time, actually. It's usually about 7 p.m. GMT, which I think is 1 p.m. CDT, which is like an hour after you go live, right? It's usually when I'm streaming. If I have work during the day, if I don't have work, I'll usually be streaming a lot earlier. So usually around about 12 to 1 o'clock GMT, which I think is early morning American time.
Awesome.
And usually me chatting Britbonger politics, talking Twitch drama, talking anything that I feel like is relevant to leftist discourse at the time, usually. So
okay, quick, hit me with the Twitch drama. What's going on? Who's doing a what?
I was trying to think what the last Twitch drama. I mean, it's been a while, so I actually took a month break from streaming over the end of March and start of April, so I didn't really get embroiled in much of the drama. But so, for example, when one of my previous streams, I don't think you'd seen on Twitter how it was this is old drama now, but probably the last drama that I covered was so Vorsh subtweeted J.K. Rowling saying he made a joke about women shut up and start apologizing challenge, which obviously got clipped by J.K. Rowling. It became this whole drama, and he tried to defend like the ironic misogyny that he was engaging in. It's just like, well, you're giving, and I was like, well, no, because he doesn't understand, especially like how the transphobic kind of paradigm is like in the UK specifically, because he thinks it's just a conservative liberal divide, which it is in the United States, for example. It's a very kind of party split, but obviously he didn't understand it at the time, right? Exactly, that's the one. So
they call it Turf Island, y'all.
I had in my response video that I did, I had to explain. No. In the UK, it's the liberals that are pushing this. Conservatives, obviously, too. But that's why that's why we call it Turf Island, because it crosses political lines. It's being driven by like a big media disinformation campaign explicitly to use trans people as a wedge issue to drive liberals to the right by making them scared of any party platform that might support trans people in any way. So we've got this fucking absolute, I'm sure you've seen in the United States, we're getting the same thing over here, where frontline politicians are just being asked on talk radio, can you define a woman for me, please? And it's like, when we have a government who's led to hundreds of thousands of COVID deaths, a government that has given billions and billions of taxpayer money away to their mates in the private sector, a government that was previously responsible to like tens of thousands of deaths due to austerity, this government who is trying to ban protest, that's trying to rig elections, and we're concentrating on the parties that are going on and what's happening with trans people. It's fucking clown shoes time. It really is.
Yeah, everyone over here is obsessed with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Oh God, yeah, I've seen.
Stupid. It's awful.
Right, it really is.
Okay, well, no Justice, you're fucking wonderful. Love your face. To any of our trans viewers, you have value. Your life has value. You're wonderful. You're beautiful. You know what I mean? What the fuck? So sorry y'all have to deal with the dumb bullshit. Send them my way. You know what I mean? Send them my way, and I'll straighten them out. Okay. No Justice, you've been great. Let's do this again sometime soon. Maybe we can think of another topic you can educate me on. But I'm honestly gonna watch that video again and let it go and try to let it stew a bit. And I appreciate you sharing with me. I hope you have a really wonderful day. Peace. We're gonna let you go now. Bye.
Take care. Catch you on the next one. See you later.
Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.
Woo! Making content. That was No Justice. Check her out. See you later.